So far with my experience with relationships and romance and sex and dating, you're always going to kind of be living on two levels at once, which seems to be something that is kind of the case just in general across the board, but especially with dating. Um, for example, you always have to be able to see women as just a human being with flaws and, you know, with just the sort of view that is devoid of the romantic element or the sexual element. You have to be able to see women just as another person, just as another human being with just a normal life who you know, has all the same basic, um, I guess you could say, struggles as anybody else. You have to be able to see women on that level as well as the other level, which is the sexual level and the romantic level and all of that. Like, those two things aren't necessarily separate, but they are two opposing things. It's almost like the friend versus the lover type dynamic. And it's those two things together that make a sort of healthy point of view, in my experience. And there's a time and a place for everything. You know, there's a time to talk to somebody, just as a person, just to get to know somebody on the level of who they are and their personality. And there's a time to have true romantic interplay. And really, the wisdom in a person, I guess you could say, emotional intelligence, is knowing when and where those things apply, and even sort of leading that, if need be. Sort of being the one who moves through that landscape. Somebody who is purely fixated on sex is a very one-dimensional, easy to predict, boring person. Frankly, they're very, very boring and just one shade. There's nothing there, outside of very specific circumstances, because sometimes that is okay. Sometimes that's what's going on. Sometimes that's a state of affairs, but more often than not, um, sex shouldn't be just your goal, unless you're at that point in your life or you're going through some kind of phase or that's what you want to do. Just focus on that. But I promise you, when you have sex with somebody, when you get entangled with somebody romantically, you don't come out clean. You don't just walk away clean. You gather something and you leave something behind. And people find that out, People kind of find that out like afterward, after a period of time. There's this general sense of dissatisfaction that I've noticed when people are maybe a bit more casual with their dating, like intentionally casual. And I've been there. I've been there. Um, and I know the difference. I know the two different ways you can feel about all that. But yeah, it's like, first and foremost, you're just two human beings, and you either have chemistry or you don't. You either have that click or you don't. And that click is like a signal, it's a guidepost. It's telling you whether or not you should keep going and go further and further and further into the layers, because like I said, you're not going to get out clean. And you don't want to end up becoming overtly entangled with somebody when, you feel that it isn't going to last, or you feel as if you're not going to really want to spend time around this person like a lot. Because really what it boils down to with dating, I think we all kind of understand this. And we may go through different phases and have different approaches over time, but sort of ultimately, at the end of the day, both men and women are looking for the same thing. Men and women find the totality of human experience in each other. women find the fullest and deepest understanding and realization of what it's like to be a woman through men, and men find out and learn what it's like to be within the full depth and breadth of what it is to be a man through women. And that's just true. There's no getting around that. Um, and really, what people want is this person who you just click with. Things feel just natural, this sense of organic, and there's this like semi-magical quality about the two of you and how you view each other. It's this semi-unrealistic view that you just have specifically for each other, where those things about us that are genuine flaws, that are genuinely not good, don't really seem not good because it's them. And that's a place where you're both going to be at your full comfort. That's when you're both going to have a sense of like complete safety, where you really know in your bones that this person is not going to betray you. That's the sort of situation where like actual love grows and develops. That's the sort of nesting zone where that sort of thing can grow. And it's in that circumstance where it occurs to you both that you might want to make more of you. You might want to make more people who are half you and half them. It's like, what greater show of how much you love somebody is there than making more of you? Like, that's pretty profound if you think about it. And in those situations, in those sorts of relationships, they are really once in a lifetime. Um, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people that we could actually like date and get along with just fine, and care deeply about. But I really feel like there is something deeper. Like there is this bond that two people can feel that makes you both fully understand and know that you're at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing with the right person. And there's just no doubt about that. It's just so clear. It just seems like everything is implied and everything is kind of, you know, it just comes from this basis of this very exceptional way of connecting. You both look to each other very differently than how everybody else looks. And it's not really something you can control. It's like that Alan Watts quote: "Love isn't ours to command." And that's the truth. If we could all just command love and just, point at somebody and say, "I will love them," everybody would be paired up, if that's the way it was. But obviously, you can try that. um, but it's not going to be the real thing. It's not going to be the same thing. And when I say stuff like this, I know that even people who haven't been with anybody know what I'm talking about. There's a certain resonance between a man and a woman when they get together in this way. And sex is not an end by any means. It's the physical version of that bond. It's saying what words cannot say in this physical way. And that sort of sex it's sacred. I mean, let's be honest, it's a sacred thing. And that sort of bond, that sort of coming together is something that to anybody who experiences it will never forget about. And it will change you. It will change you through and through, and it will make you different. And really, that's what people want, and you can see that in people's eyes, and you can see it just everywhere, really. A lot of people, I mean, are hurting each other. That's kind of what the scene is now. It's both sexes are very standoffish, and they have a hard time trusting each other, which is warranted and understandable. Believe me, I totally get it, but I do feel like there's going to be a time where men and women sort of get back to basics in a way where you can have this situation where it's a modern relationship in all the ways that we sort of understand that to be the case, but at the same time, it also is a sort of classic relationship at the same time where you feel this thing for this person, and this person feels this thing for you, and because of that, you would prefer to spend your time with them. If you're going to do something, you would prefer to have them there because you want them to experience it too, and you want to see how they react to it, and you just want them to have those experiences with you, and that's like a sacred position in somebody's life. It really is. And if you find yourself in that situation and you're there right now, do not betray that person. Don't do it, because you will hurt yourself and you'll hurt that person in ways that you really can't imagine. That's why betrayal is considered the worst sin. It's because it requires you to be very close to somebody who trusts you, and really that is the worst sin of all. And I know when you're with somebody, I know in this world right now, we have access to so many people all the time. We have access to basically infinite people, but do not let that be a talking point in your head. Do not let that be something that changes the way you dictate yourself. There were always a lot of people on Earth, and now you just have access to them. Don't let your thoughts about hypotheticals like damage something that you're only going to get once. I promise you, you only get it the way it is, like this, once. And when a person is in the midst of all that, I can completely understand how it might occur to them that they might think something like, "Wow, this is really amazing. This is a really amazing relationship. If this is this good, then there's a chance that there is something better." And that's not the way you want to think about it. And our minds are fantastic troubleshoots. We are very, very good at, seeing something and then coming up with something as a sort of solution, but ignore your troubleshoot on that front. Do not acknowledge it, because those thoughts will occur to you. They will just naturally occur to you as a person with a mind. Those thoughts will automatically just be part of the lexicon of thought for some time. But you have to you have to realize that not all thoughts appear for a purpose. That they don't appear necessarily because they require a solution. They appear because our minds consider most hypotheticals, most likely hypotheticals, and it's a completely rational hypothetical for the mind to come up with. The idea that since this relationship is so great, then there might be another one that's better. Of course, that's a completely rational thought, but you can't, thoughts are like, they're almost like vampires in a way. And I don't mean to give that a negative association, I just mean strictly in terms of thoughts come and go, but they need your attention to grow. They need to take your psychic energy to grow. And if you do that, if you get good at knowing which thoughts should get your psychic energy and which shouldn't, then you will master being a human being. You will be a master level human if you are able to let thoughts fall by the wayside, even if they recur, And at the same time, notice other thoughts and feed them and flesh them out. But that's what we want. What we want beauty, of course. We want to be able to look at who we love and see beauty. And in time, we're going to change, man. We're going to age and get old. And that beauty is going to change. And so are you. So are you. And that's the truth. And there has to be something in you that's better and wiser, that understands the plethora of possibilities and takes the noble one, takes the one that is wise, takes the one that you know in the end is the right decision. You meet this person and you fall in love and you get married and time goes on and you live a life that is a combination of routine and spontaneity. This love grows and grows and grows because you're two people who are going deep. You're loving each other on the level of the soul in a way that you never thought possible. But at some point through that, you might think to yourself, I could get somebody 10 years younger. We're getting old. I have this body for a limited period of time, and I've tried the marriage thing and the kids thing, but I think I'm going to get somebody younger now. And plenty of people fall into this because this thought is going to occur to you. It's going to occur to any married person who's in their 40s or lower 50s and is getting older. It's gonna run through your mind at least once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, maybe 10 times. But you don't feed it. Those are the sort of thoughts you recognize as potential possibilities, and you sort of smile at, if anything. You don't feed those thoughts. Not if you're with the person that you love. You have to be wise. You have to honor that person, man. It's like these things are not just ideas. They're not just intellectual exercises. If somebody loves you and you love that person, they'll see it in just billions and millions and billions of just tiny micro things that you do as symptoms of how you feel. You won't be able to help it. It's not work to you. Because it shows. It shows in your face. It shows in how you touch. And honestly, it's like I've seen the 2 different routes of living, And if you do meet somebody like that, and that does happen to you, go with it, man. I know it's more difficult now. I know there is a huge number of very attractive, intelligent, beautiful women out there. The women are getting more and more educated. They're getting more and more money in their wallets, their purses, or whatever. And it seems like there's a shift happening. The dating pool seems to be larger in terms of eligible women and lesser in terms of eligible men. It seems like if you're a catch of a dude, you're sort of in this odd golden age. If you're not somebody who wants to commit, or somebody who wants to play the field, you're in a pretty good position because there's less of you, which is just the truth, But if you're somebody who wants to get married, and honestly, I believe that's what we all want when it boils down to it. If you meet somebody like that, are you going to let some small thing turn you away? Are you going to let some tiny thing just make you do a 180 about how you feel about them? How do you know when you met the person that you're supposed to marry? What does that feel like? What does it feel like when you first see them? What does it feel like when they say something awkward when you first met? or something that maybe doesn't make you feel just completely excited, you know. These chances and these people that you come across, it's not infinite, nor is time. And with the way things are with the internet and just access to so many people, there's something about us that lets us feel before we know. And that might sound like a foreign concept to some people, but it's true. Before we know something in a concrete way, we feel it. And we can't quite word it. We don't quite know for sure exactly what it is, but it does pull us and guide us into a direction. But if you do find that, if you do meet somebody who truly strikes you differently, and who you strike differently, for whom which it's mutual, I would recommend at least, getting to know that person, at least talking to that person. And honestly, it's an interesting time to be alive because you just see it so much. It's like I guess it's always been the case. More women have been asking where all the good men are, but this day and age, man, it's like on a whole other level. You know, it's like as a man, you know, it, I'm not saying to not think about sex. Actually, you should think about sex. When sex crosses your mind, you think and act differently when you're looking at somebody and you're thinking about taking their clothes off. You flirt differently when you have sex on your mind for 5 seconds. But it just can't be there the entire time as the complete driving force, as the only dimension, your only wavelength, so to speak. It's actually good to think about it and to look at a woman and, think about sex and say things in that spirit, but that's the intelligence of it. That's the charm of it, is to turn that on and off. You can go from sex to humor, and that's really what I'm trying to say. From the male point of view, you're just going to be so greatly helped as a man by not just understanding who you are, but what you are. To me, the what is more important than the who, because the who almost sorts itself out. The who is a sort of multi-layered entity with the core that never changes, and then the layers slowly expand out, and the further you go out from the core, the more susceptible to change those elements are. And the closer you get to way deep down inside of you, the less things change, or the slower things change. But what you are, you're both a civilized, intelligent, educated, rational human being, but you're also an animal. You're both of those things. And you need not forget it. You can't operate purely as an animal, and you can't operate purely as a sentient being, so to speak. Because if you do, you will again be far too one-dimensional and boring, just in general. I mean, you'll even feel bored. Like, you just won't have enough energy, you won't have enough charisma, to move relationships forward unless you have both of those elements operating at the same time. There needs to be a part of you that is capable of thinking about sex without it completely gobbling up all of your attention. And there needs to be a part of you that's thinking about how you're speaking and the actual details and information and the conversation on an intellectual level with the woman you're talking to. You need to be able to do that as well as feel like an animal. there are people who get stuck in one or the other, and it's the same with women. It's going to apply to you too, but I can obviously only speak from the male point of view, but it's been the same with women my entire life. There's always going to be the very, very human parts of us, and we connect on that level. And there's also going to be the very, very animal parts of us, and we connect on that level too. The animal part is more in terms of action and your very presence, how you actually feel, how you move, how you speak. And the sentient part of you is thinking more in terms of detail. It's thinking about specific details and specific elements of how you guys actually interact. You're thinking about things that you do or don't have in common. But it's absolutely and very healthy to look at a woman and just for a split second think about tearing her clothes off. But the trick is to not get stuck in that. It's also completely healthy to look at a woman and want to know information about her, But again, you don't just want to get stuck in that, because dating is not it's not an interview. You have to be going back and forth between man and animal, effectively. And the essence of charisma, what it feels like to be a charismatic dude, what it feels like to pour charm out of you, is very, very different from the feeling of fear and uptightness. It's very different from the feeling of feeling cinched up. There's a certain looseness. There's a certain, I guess you could say, sense of calm and relaxation that comes with that feeling of feeling like you're a bit of an animal. Because animals don't obviously think like us. Animals don't think multiple steps ahead. They don't necessarily worry about certain elements of their interactions. It's a very limited zone that operates more based off of the immediate feeling. But that alone, like I said, is just it's a simpleton if you're just that. You're and you can always tell. It's like I said in videos past. You can always tell a man who is too animal, and you can always tell a man who is too human. Always, they stand out like sore thumbs. But a man who is both is transparent and honest, yet still a complete mystery. Such a man is sort of a paradox in a way, because he is two things at the same time. He is trustworthy, he is disciplined, yet spontaneous, and you don't quite know what he's capable of. He has an intention, but at the same time, he's improvising. He is driven by this feeling when you're getting along with a woman and, you really have something going, say, you got like a strong bond and just amazing chemistry. You're driven by this feeling, because women in that situation, from the male point of view, tend to almost start to look semi-magical, which sounds a little weird, but they really do. That they start to look semi-magical, as if the rules kind of change for them, as if they don't quite exist like other women. Because this woman, her very essence is starting to penetrate into you, and your very essence is starting to penetrate into her, and it's changing the way you experience that person. The process of getting to know somebody is the process of trillions and trillions and trillions of just tiny, tiny little tendrils going into each other. And those tendrils are changing you. years are changing her as well. For each new person we meet, there's a new chemical reaction where something is left and something is taken without necessarily wanting to do so. And romantic relationships are the most powerful version of this. As I've said, you will go deeper and you will feel more in a romantic relationship more than any other relationship that a human being is capable of. And the depths to which we can love, the lengths to which we can go, truly do not end. They do not end. The things that we would do as men for the women that we love, we would end our very own lives to save theirs. Of course we would. Our children, our wives, our sisters, we would literally break every rule we know to keep them safe. And we spend our time arranging this world in a way that better positions ourselves and them. And this is the truth. You will not have a full, happy, and robust marriage unless you have that feeling where you would do anything for them. That's that part of us that is animal. It is a strong force, but it is brought together by our intellectual side and semantics and planning and strategy and politics. And say you do marry, and you've been married for 10 or 15 years, you need to still be able to look at that woman and think about tearing her clothes off. You need to still think about sex. It needs to not be the main driver, of course, all the time. Obviously, you've been in a relationship for a long time, and that's already been figured out. But as a man, you still need to be able to look at your wife and just utterly want to tear her clothes off. You never lose that part, because that's what you are. You are this Wolverine, as well as this sort of stalwart, logical being. Your savagery is tempered in the cast of humanity, and it is a beautiful thing if you can get this right. If you can get this right, you feel good. You feel proper. You feel like you should. And women love you for it. Your wives will love you for it. They will love you for having access to that part of you. And believe me, that they want to be ravaged, that they want to have their clothes torn off. They want you to want them. But context is important. The bond is important. The relationship is important. But that part should never go away. If I get married, I am going to be tearing my wife's clothes off until I'm 80, until I just physically cannot function anymore, because that part of me is just so alive and strong that I need to continuously learn and continuously expand whatever intellectualism and wisdom that I have to keep it in balance. Otherwise, I would just be a pure animal. And I'm the sort of person who always knows that you have to be able to get back to the middle, back to zero, back to neutral, but you have to have access to the extremes as well.